Oh yeah, I got you. So, like knew each other before all this and then started more like
Yeah,
building.
you have to, right?
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's like some weird, like blind date, game show where you kind of just meet. And I think with things like abstract, where there's like just a big mission and a big idea around this consumer crypto terminal, and then you're trying to bring tens of millions of people on chain. Yeah, like it's very rare that you'll kind of get a bunch of folks that don't know each other prior, and for that to succeed. So it's not like we knew each other for 10 plus years, but I think we all knew each other, whether on a personal level. Not all eight of us, but a good number of us. And then, I think everyone knew each other by reputation.
Yeah, time in crypto, like just hits differently, and you feel like you've been here for ages when it's been like few months or even few years. Knowing these people, getting close to them, connecting with them, I feel you, absolutely feel you. Thanks for the answer. Let
And
me
I
pass
think,
the mic to you. Yeah, yeah.
abstract is more than just, the three co-founders and like the elite eight, the founding fathers. It's now there's a 50-person core team, folks like Jared, Abril, Finn, and Hedge, and these folks are out there, and they are equally important. Everyone has like a very unique set of roles and responsibilities. But I think what outside of that core team, I think what's really happened much quicker than we probably ever imagined is the community really forming around abstract, and the community leaders like yourselves that really started to kind of curate these sub communities, and it's really kind of gone beyond even pudgies, right? I think the cheat code was you know yes, building tech, and what you'll see with the consumer crypto terminal, like, right, the hard part is two things. It's one, how do you get the best entrepreneurs to build in there, right? Because without, it's almost like, say, like, I came up through hip hop and streetwear, where it's like you have a label like Rock Nation, or you have something like Kith. It's like without artists and different brands, like indies, labels or stores, like they're nothing, right? So that's one part of it. It's like, how do you get all the best entrepreneurs with all the best apps and projects into what you're building? And then I think even more important is, how do you form community around it, and how do you ensure that community is predominantly real users who with discretionary income, that really want to come to this digital Disneyland, this theme park of fun. And I think that's where you're also seeing us being very anti-farmer, very anti-extractor and scammer. Just because I think what we're trying to go for is being premium, both as a community and also as this consumer crypto terminal. It's Disneyland, isn't for everybody, right? So the Disneyland of digital Disneyland of fun also isn't for everyone. It's for a very select group of mavens and early adopters.
Sweet. By the way, when you guys grow and expand, how do you guys pick new team members? I mean, what are the criterias for bringing on a new team member? How do you guys choose that?
I think it's the way that we're function, or we're organized. You have kind of core engineering, which is led by Saigar. You have marketing and community led by Luca, and then you have operations where that's kind of led by Lorenzo, and I'm the CEO. And I think through all of these kind of departments and sub teams, you kind of have a uh, a set of things that we're trying to achieve, right? Like, say, where you'll see streaming in this consumer crypto terminal, and to Steigar's credit and the engineering team, they try to do it themselves, but this is where really gifted people, they know their limits, they know when to ask for help, and there's like, we're not going to be able to build something like Twitch, Kick, YouTube, like overnight. So there's obviously a need there. So we went and got this cat, Terrence, who was 3 years at Netflix doing streaming, 3 years at Tesla doing streaming. And I think what you'll see with streaming within the consumer crypto terminal is that, this goated engineer just built this right from the ground up in about 2 months. So I think kind of that first is that, we have a requirement that, kind of creates a kind of a position within the core team. And then within the core team, you're looking for two types of people. I think the ideal is someone that's already in the top 1% of their tradecraft. Obviously, you're talking about streaming. Very few people are, they've spent time at, 3 years at Tesla and 3 years at Netflix doing streaming. This is all of a sudden now it's like you're talking about a very small group of people. DevRail, like someone like Jared, that's another good example of he's easily the top 1%, especially when you're talking about, EVM and then, zero knowledge technology. He was over at Polygon's ZK EVM group where, this is where Polygon had bought 3 different, go-to teams and kind of combined them to create this solution called ZK EVM. And, I think the thing about Jared that I love is he is probably one of the best communicators of technical content. And, like what you saw in those early days with our docs, that dude just created that from scratch overnight. And, so I think one, you're looking for these folks, these talents that are already in the top 1% of their respective trade craft. But then obviously, even any kind of like Team USA basketball, it's not all, LeBron, KD, and Anthony, type players. Like there's only so many, top 1%ers. And so the other, percentage of the team, they're probably high potentials that if given, put in the right system, over a very short period of time can also quickly get to, top 10, 5, 1% pretty quickly. And, we have a couple of engineers that, kind of are in that mold. You have folks like Avril who, or Finn who I think can quickly rise up the ranks and become top 1% in their respective tradecraft. So it's kind of a mix. So think of it like, Team USA basketball, where it's a mix of all-stars and, these like ridiculously talented high potentials.
I love the explanations. Here's another one. How do you guys plan on integrating, as Luca calls it? I was reading the blog post, and he has this thing he calls essential spending, things like banking, insurance, credit, integrating that with Web3, right? So how do you plan on integrating traditional Web2 finance and Web3, which might be, some sort of a hassle? But how do you guys plan on bridging that gap?
So when you look at, the way that we think about the consumer crypto revolution, which is much bigger than abstract, right? So, the consumer crypto revolution is something similar to like what you're seeing now with AI, and abstract is like NVIDIA, right? And NVIDIA isn't the only player in AI, but it is, one of the main players. It's kind of stewarding, especially out here in CES, like the buzz is very much around AI. But there are chip makers and fabricators and, folks, LLMs. So it's very much a category that's kind of greenfield and kind of growing together with a lot of key players. And I think what you're seeing now is something very similar with the consumer crypto revolution. And again, abstract, we are, one of hopefully many players that really push this space forward. And as our thesis is, as you see consumer crypto really pan out, it's gonna, it's kind of that typical like, bell-shaped adoption curve where, right now we're in these early days of the mavens, the early adopters, and that's really, people who just want to have fun, kind of come visit the digital Disneyland of fun. And it's really around those folks are just looking to do fun things, and fun very broad, right? And and it's really, we're kind of in this discretionary spend, phase of apps, mints, coins. And I think what you're talking about, as global brands start adopting, especially, folks in the financial services industry, I think that's where you kind of get into a more mainstream adoption. That's kind of the second of three phases, which, people are using crypto rails to, create necessary, necessary applications and projects. And then eventually you kind of get to the long tail, and you use blockchain, crypto rails in this phase three around things that are just essential, that your people are using in your daily, weekly, your work lives. So I think in these early days where it's really, built around discretionary income, there's probably 7 categories where you'll start seeing really, apps and projects really kind of forming around. And it's gaming, social platforms, social creator platforms, trading related applications, casinos, betting, like things like prediction markets. And then you have digital collectibles, which I think obviously, it's not just NFTs from 21, but it's like, what's the next phase of NFTs? And then I think, for me, the 7th category is probably the most interesting, is tokenized culture. And you're seeing, a version of that with, the Pengu token. How do you create an on-ramp, a low cost basis on-ramp for people to join the huddle, right? Not everyone can, have a big or little pudgy. And I think what you saw, Luca and the pudgy team just put on a clinic especially over last year, was, getting toys into Walmart, Target, Walgreens. And that, again, that's more of a mainstream version of kind of on-ramping people into the pudgy community. And Pengu was, kind of that tokenizing of culture, to give folks a low cost basis to kind of also feel part of the community, and, feel connected to that IP, and feel like they also co-own that IP together. But I think tokenized culture is going to really take off and come in different form factors, where it turns into, tokenizing real world assets, to even tokenizing, NBA clubs one day, or, other kind of like, sports teams, whether it's the 4 major sports out of the US, or even, football out, which obviously is like the most dominant sport in the world.
As like we are already touching this topic, onboarding and adoption is super important for sure, but there's also a user retention. And after onboarding, which I personally believe Abstract is the most, like suitable and the best solution out there, how do you plan to retain users?
That's easy. It's like, why do you come back to Disneyland, and Disney World every year? Because, they have the best rides. They have it's the best community, right? You feel attached to it. They have all this IP that you identify with. So, I think for Abstract, this is why, again, it is permissionless to build on the Abstract blockchain. Anyone can deploy, an application, a project on Abstract. It is permission to be in the consumer crypto terminal. We have about a 70% rejection rate. And I think for us, the way that we look at it is, it's a project that has to just cook. It has to probably fulfill one of 3 criteria. Either, it quickly can generate $1 million in revenue, and that's because it's built something where it's creating value for its user base, that, they want to give money, right? Similar to like a mobile game, right? You're paying for in-app purchases because, you feel like this is giving you value. That's one. Or, if it's like a freemium model, then, this application has a pretty good chance of getting to 1 million MAUs pretty quickly. And then the last, kind of criteria is, despite not making revenue or having users, you have a project that is culturally significant, that kind of moves and shapes culture, especially within crypto. And if you kind of use that subjective screening criteria, it's pretty easy to cut 60 to 70 kind of percent of the inbound coming in. And that's how you get to that 417 number of projects that are, that we're committed to helping not only onboard onto Abstract, but also help them almost like in a lightweight venture studio model to, kind of tweak their product to hopefully have a better chance at finding product market fit and finding like a user install base. So, I think if you have the best applications, crypto curious normies are going to come in, kind of, digital natives and kind of crypto natives are going to come in, and there's going to be like a 1 in 3, 1 in 5 chance that you're going to find something that's fun and that there's some stickiness to where you can retain those users. And so I think as long as you have the best apps and projects, you're going to get the best, users. And I think for us, this is where you're also kind of really, similar to like where, we have this like cutoff and this criteria for what entrepreneurs and builders that we're bringing into the ecosystem. We're also doing the same thing on the user end. This, Abstract as a community isn't for everyone. And this is why, we're constantly talking about, farmers getting smoked. One, if you want to farm, to, make a little bit of bread, or that's what you do, like, that's fine, right? Like there's, there's no shame in that. But, we were just trying to make sure that there's clear expectations being, set where, it's not like, some of these other ecosystems where, you're grinding and you're doing a bunch of transactions and, gaining points, and then that turns into some kind of airdrop. Like, I think if that's not what the incentive system is designed to, to attract users, I think you just got to let people know, like from the jump, that's just not going to work here. So, I don't want to disappoint you. So, find like a different spot. But where we're really focused on is when you get all the best entrepreneurs and all the best crypto native projects, you want to deliver to them the best user base, right? A user base that's really here to discover fun things, a user base that has discretionary income, where if you build something compelling and you're providing them value, yes, there will be this economic exchange. And I think the other important part is, you're bringing all of these creators, whether they're content creators or streamers, that you see in Web2, you're trying to create some type of like, economic path for them, where if they're building great content, creating great communities, like, again, there's some mechanism where they could do this full time, similar to like what you see in gaming, where, a lot of the folks that are, streaming, those folks are now going to become the new distributors of games, like, the new publishers. At least that's my personal opinion. Like, you have the 5 big AAA studios, but, now I think, you have these streamers that have massive kind of, communities, and, they're more than equally capable of, publishing and distributing a game. So I think it'll be the same thing on the Web3 side.